Good morning. How is everyone? It's great to see you all here. I just want to give a shout out to Karis, Hannah, and Angie, my fellow CTV Bell Media ladies. Thanks for being here. And thank you to all of you for coming out. My name is Leanne Evans. I am the 5 p.m. anchor and producer at CTV News Kitchener. I'm happy to be moderating today and introducing the wonderful women that will be speaking to you. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we live on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples as we seek a renewed relationship based on the foundation of mutual understanding and respect. I wrote a little something, so I'm going to read that to you all now. I was sitting at home last night and with my friend Hannah, who's sitting over here, and I said, what should I say tomorrow when I get up there and speak to all the wonderful women out here? And she said, speak from the heart. So I wrote down a little something. First, I want to say, look at how many women showed up here. I think that alone is powerful in itself. And the men. Thank you for coming. We're here to talk about women's empowerment, but let's be honest, that phrase can mean a lot of things. For me, it does really come down to this: feeling confident enough to use your voice, even when it does shake. Feeling supported enough to take that next step, even when you're not sure you're ready. I have been there, and let me tell you, I've been there this year, so it definitely happens if you're feeling that way too. Everyone here is juggling something, a goal, a challenge, a transition, a quiet dream. You might not have said it out loud yet. And one of the best reminders is events like this. It gives us that acknowledgement that we're here, we're showing up, we're not doing it alone. Look around you. Look at everyone here beside you, cheering you on. Empowerment to me isn't having it all figured out. It's about giving yourself permission to grow, to ask questions, to take up space, and to stop shrinking just to make other people feel comfortable. Here's the other beautiful part of this. When one woman steps into her power, it doesn't take anything away from anyone else. It creates more room, more opportunities, more courage, more drive. So that's what today is about. I hope everyone can listen closely to the great speakers that we're going to have here sharing their stories. And I hope you talk, connect, share, learn something about someone new that maybe you haven't met before. Whatever sticks with you when you leave this room, I think we're all going to go out there and have a better day because of it. Okay, so thank you. Let's get started. Okay, before we begin, though, I do have to thank our sponsors. Our title sponsor is Heffner Lexus and Heffner Toyota. Our gold sponsor is Wilfrid Laurier University. The event sponsor, MTE Consultants. Design sponsor, W Design Co. Media sponsor, Bell Media. Production partner, Good Co Productions. Photography partner, TPS Design and Photography. And the hospitality partner is Bingamans. So join me in thanking these incredible sponsors. Okay, my apologies. I'm kind of going through the script for the first time with you guys. Okay, so we would also like to acknowledge some fearless females who have been featured in the series presented by Scotiabank. Over the past few months, the following fearless females have shared their incredible stories and their career journeys as well. And my apologies if I say your name wrong. Cheryl Sanovka with Alt Carrot, Katie Campbell with Soul Matchmaking, Choma Janelle Aphrodisia with Inner Compass Wellbeing, Shauna Lifeso with Subtly You, Juanita Metzger with Stroll Walking Tours, Julie Newman with Willow Hall HR, Fawn Lang with Food for Kids Waterloo Region, Alicia Christian with Learners, and Sandra Heptich with Fotizi Food Trucks. And you can watch their full interviews on greaterkwchamber.com. The events in the Heffner Women's Leadership Series are supported by a group of volunteers who form the Women's Leadership Committee. These ladies volunteer their time and talent to help bring events like this to life. So please wave when I do say your name. The chair is Rachel Summers. Everyone say hi, Rachel. The vice chair is Andrea DeJagger-Jackson. Hi, Andrea. Christy Bertrand. Allison Burke. Suzanne Flynn. Carla Harris. And Rebecca Hemney. Sorry, there's more. Kelly Koner. Debbie Mann. Sabrina McGregor. Janice McVeigh, Shannon Shaw, Sandra Stone, and Leslie Warren. Okay, and just before we introduce our first speaker, you will find some sheets and markers on your table. As we hear from the speakers, if something resonates with you, you can capture it, you can write it down on your takeaway sheet that you have there. Okay, shall we get started? Yeah, okay. Okay, guys, come on. Let's be like, woo! Okay, that's better. Okay, we have 5 speakers today. Our first speaker is Fawzia, and Fawzia taught me how to say her last name right. It is Mazhar. Yay! Thank you, Fawzia. She has more than 18 years of experience in the local social profit sector, much of it in leadership and management. Her work experience includes managing a neighborhood-based community center and a large-size service hub, as well as leading community collaborations and social change initiatives. Fawzia has worked at the House of Friendship, the Working Center, and Family and Children Services of Waterloo Region. She has also served as the president of the Pakistan-Canada Association, council member of the chair and the Belong Group for Immigration Partnership Waterloo Region, and as a member of the board of directors at the Kitchener-Waterloo Art Gallery. I don't think I have to say more because we all know Fawzia is a very impressive woman. So please join me in welcoming Fawzia.
Okay, hello. Oops. Hello, that's much better. First of all, Leanne was saying, everyone say, woo, and I'm like, I'm the first speaker. I don't think I should be doing that. It's better you to continue to be late. That's completely fine. That's okay, not a problem. And then secondly, you just saw another very impressive skill that I have, which is driving this wheelchair I've done it in front of 800 people, believe it or not. Perfectly. Reverse gear, everything. Can you believe that I had an accident while I was driving something? When you see me driving the wheelchair? No, right? One more sort of disclaimer, heads up, that my aspiration for my retirement career, even before this accident, has been, or had been, or still, like it's alive, stand-up comedian. But I wanted to do it after my retirement, for sure. And then the accident happened and everything, and then that was like one big change in my perspective on life, that what if I'm not here? What if I'd never have the opportunity to retire? Should I continue to postpone, delay my aspiration to become a stand-up comedian or sit-down comedian until I retire, or I just do it now? Well, I had other things to do in my life, so I just decided I'm going to be a comedian every day. It doesn't matter. Staff meeting, whatever it is, try to bring comedy, and that makes your day better, and it makes everybody else's day better, right? So here, that's my goal today, to pepper the talk with some comedy as well, wherever possible. If not, forgive me. That's what I told Leanne. First speaker, the best thing about first speaker is a lot of forgiveness in the room. There's no comparison. All of them are going to set the bar high. For me, there's no bar. Right? So, perfect. Okay, so what I told Sharvat, I want to be really stay true with that. I told Sharvat that I'm going to talk about how sometimes in our lives we can have what I called life-altering experiences that just sort of take us to the questions of life which we should have only when we are 19, 20, 21 year old, but it doesn't happen. All of a sudden, again, we're asking ourselves, who am I? Why am I here? What are we doing? What is my purpose? Right? So you build a purpose, sense of purpose for you after years of, whatever contemplation or your environment and things like that, and then your life changes. What do you do? Right? The questions just come back again. So I just said I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I want to be true with this one. So I'm going to talk about 3 life-altering experiences. But the first 2 very quickly, and then focus on the accident one. So the first life-altering experience that I want to talk about, and again, I want to remind everyone that life-altering experiences, they do not need to be negative or making you sad. They can be very, very good, but still they alter your life in so many ways. So my first one was when I got married. Okay, I was born in a family, how do I say this, like very privileged, but also I was the oldest child in my family, so very responsible, but also sort of free spirit. Like I loved playing sports, for example. I wasn't like a grade A first position student. Actually, my dad had such a disappointment because I couldn't become a doctor. My grades in grade 12 were so low that I could have never been in medical school anyway. So, things like that. But I liked playing sports more. I liked participating in speeches and competition more. And I was a very sort of playful type of girl growing up, although I had a lot of responsibilities at the same time. So what happened, as the oldest or oldest, whatever it is, child, British or Canadian, American, I don't know. However, for some reason, my mother started to dream about me getting married much earlier than herself. She got married when she was in almost mid-20s. I got married when I was 9 days behind my 18th birthday. Arranged marriage, but I approved it. I had rejected 2 proposals before, so you can imagine. But anyway, I got married, right? And this is me really not thinking about marriage from the responsibilities perspective, thinking about marriage as a certificate of freedom. And also like, I'm gonna go and travel, because my husband lived in another country and worked, right? This is really, really good. It was life-altering experience. That's what I wanted to convey, that you get married early on, you're not ready for responsibilities, you move to a different country, there you have to build your life. Okay? And in earlier days of this experience, it was all good, great, started to reproduce 2 babies in 2 years, right? And then the question, what am I doing here? What about my all sports and everything? And I didn't want to be just sitting at home and raising children. Believe me, don't get me wrong, I love my children. But the idea is that that's not the life that I always enjoyed. The first gift that I wanted from my husband was a tabletop Mario. If you remember, anybody is of my age, red color tabletop Mario, that was my first gift. And Walkman, do you guys remember that? Right? That kind of stuff. And on our dining table, we played ping pong. We had Scrabble at home. We played Scrabble in free time. but still I wanted to do something. So anyway, I decided to go back to school, distant learning, and completed my bachelor's over 4 years. I had 2 more babies by then and a lot of other things. But the whole idea is that you can reach to this like life-altering experience, remind you again, it's not just all about the sports. It's not just all about being out there. It's also education, which I missed because I got married early. That was one thing. But the actual problem was that I wasn't very interested in education, honestly. I was just there to pass. If I was in a medical school, my parents would have not married me off. See? Make good choices in life. So the second life-altering experience that happened when we decided to come to Canada. How much time do I have? 5 minutes at least? Okay, so I don't know. So then that was the second life-altering experience, right? I was in my late 30s, 4 children, 2 children in grade 12. Sorry, not grade 12, high school. We came here to Kitchener-Waterloo. We were alone here. We had extended family in GTA, but we chose Kitchener-Waterloo because it's close to 2 universities and college, and I had my 2 daughters in high school and all that. So we came here, but we were one of our kind in the city at that time mostly. One of our kind mostly. Like I remember this, that at Victoria Park, one time I saw a woman, and she's still a friend of mine. Actually, she's now a staff at our organization. But mainly I saw her in our cultural dress, and I started to follow her. And I felt that I'm going to lose her because she was walking too fast. I was like, hello in Urdu. I was just like, I didn't just want to lose her. Okay, so from that time, wherever I walked into, I was the only person of my kind there. Honestly, like I remember times when I didn't even want to say something. I just put my head up to scratch or something, and then the facilitator or moderator would say, do you have something to say? No, because I was just like, I stood out everywhere where I went. It was that time. But it became, again, a life-altering experience for me. Oh my God, that's not, is it 1 minute or 10 seconds? 10 seconds, okay. So that was another life-altering, please give me 1 minute, life-altering experience to actually think about why I'm here, what brought me here. And at the end of this, at the end of all of this, the quest that I had, the idea was that there are so many misconceptions, stereotypes about women like me. Maybe I can survive, I can be successful, but what's gonna happen to my daughters? What's gonna happen to other women? And that actually was such a life-altering, result of the life-altering experience was the creation of Coalition of Mr. Women of KW, which is a large organization today. We do a lot of upstream work. We do a lot of bridge building work around sort of like, building bridges between especially Muslim women, racialized women, and larger community. The last experience was this accident. Believe me, I drive very well. It still happened. That was my biggest challenge, as you can understand, after being so much active and things like that. And in the end, what happened was reaching to a point, at peace that I am who I am, regardless of how I walk or how I move. And the most important thing is that I need to have a sense of purpose in life. I'm also a breast cancer survivor, so just before the accident, I had the stage 3, very fast-growing cancer in 2019. End of 2019, I finished all of everything, in 2020. 2021 was recovery, 2022 was accident. So everything, right? So for me, the renewed sense of, I was awake at nights thinking, why am I here? Right, people would say, oh, this is God's grace, you're here. We prayed for you a lot. Alhamdulillah, thanks God that you're alive. I'm like, why did you pray? Did you ask me before you pray? Might have been better if I wasn't here, right? But eventually, okay, if I'm here, if God decided for me to be here, there must be a reason. And I came up with sort of a renewed sense of purpose, which was making sure that the organization, which is a cause for me, not an organization, a movement for me, it's not an organization. I want to make sure that my movement, my cause, my organization, my group is able to stand on their feet without me. They would just say, they would kick me out. They say, we don't need you anymore. And that's what I've been focusing on since I came back to life, because people pray for me without my permission, remember? Okay. Thank you. I don't want to take more time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fazia. I love your humor and your optimism despite what you've been through. It is truly inspiring, and I know you were nervous to go first, but I think that set the bar very high. Okay, before we keep going with our speakers, I just want to take a second to remind ourselves and remember why we're here. And the fact that we are here is because of great sponsors and great companies that have brought us together. One of those is Heffner Lexus and Heffner Toyota. They are the title sponsor of this event and the reason we can all be here together today. So I'd like to welcome Melissa Brueggemann, Marketing and Events Team Lead with Heffner Lexus and Heffner Toyota, to the stage to say a few words on behalf of our title sponsor. Welcome, Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. Perfect. My name is Melissa Brueggemann, and I am the Marketing and Events Team Lead at Heffner Lexus Toyota. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you all for being here today. The way Ontario weathers have been behaving lately, just getting here is really a mission and a small victory. So thank you for all braving the elements and making it here safe and sound. We're so genuinely happy to welcome, and we're so proud to support the Greater KW Chamber and everything that they do. And events like this that bring us all together, such an incredible group of women. Thank you to our speakers, to the other sponsors, and to the KW Chamber, and to everyone for being here, for supporting one another, and for being part of our community. That's it.
Okay, Melissa, thank you. Okay, next we will hear from Jennifer Sabaris. Sorry, Jennifer. Jennifer is an entrepreneur, business coach, and founder of leadershiphub.ca, which is dedicated to supporting women as they step into and grow within entrepreneurship. She built and scaled a transportation and logistics company in a male-dominated industry, growing it from the ground up into a multi-million-dollar business and eventually selling it. Through that experience, she recognized a recurring gap. Many women were capable, driven, and ambitious, yet lacked practical support, confidence, and real-world guidance to navigate the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So let's welcome Jennifer.
Good morning, everybody. Is there a handheld one? Because I wander. Oh, I passed it. How about now? Is it working? Okay, good times, good times. All right, so my name is Jennifer Sabaris. That's my lovely polished photo. So I'm here to talk about confidence within building a business. So I built a business from zero in a male-dominated field. When I started, everybody told me I was crazy. That's the gist of it. And at the end of the story, you'll see why I believe that if I can do it, anybody can achieve it. So let's start from the beginning. So when I was growing up, nobody looked like me where I was growing up. Nobody. And on top of that, I grew up loving dirt bikes. I still love motorcycles. They're the love of my life. Sorry to my husband and my children. But I love them. And I got my first dirt bike when I was like 6. And from the minute I got on it, I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And I really appreciated my dad getting it for me. The reason why he got it for me is because I have ADHD. And now everybody knows about it. I was like scared to tell people a year ago that I have ADHD, and everybody's like, I've got it too. And I'm like, great. But back in the day, it wasn't so cool, and everybody made fun of me, even my teachers. And when I got this little dirt bike, it was like the best thing ever. And if I misbehaved in school, then my dad would literally take apart my dirt bike and make me read the Yamaha book, which had pages that were like 1,000 pages, like Bible paper. So I only messed up one time because I was like, I don't want to do this again. So as I got older, I got into racing motorcycles. And when I was like 25, I said to my dad, like, why did you get me into dirt bikes, right? Like, I've got a brother, I don't really get it. And he said, my Russian engineer father said, I knew the world was going to keep kicking you down, and you needed to learn to get back up. I was like, wow, that's really deep, cool. Then I had my mother. My mother was from the Caribbean, from Trinidad and Tobago. Woo. And my mom used to always tell me from when I could remember, she used to say, as long as there's you in this world, it's going to be people that love you and people that hate you. As long as you love yourself, that's all that matters. One of the things that I say quite often is when I walk into a room, I come with my best friend and I leave with my best friend. I am my best friend. Throughout my career, I've been told I'm too confident. Too confident, oh my gosh, why do you like that? That's because I know I'm awesome. Why do I know I'm awesome? True story. And I think every woman should be like this. Why do I think I'm awesome? Right? Because I wake up every day, I'm a pretty good person. Anything I put my mind to, I can do. Anything anybody told me I couldn't do, I did. Right? So, there's more to the story. So, I was in my career, long story short, grew through the ranks, supervisor, manager, blah, blah, blah. Ended up at COO. Wonderful. And there was a peer. I was headhunted, and my peer, who was a guy, wouldn't even have meetings with me. He was like, no, I'm not going to have a meeting with you. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, you just think you're too good for him. And I was like, yeah, I'm good at what I do. So my boss was like, why don't you guys just go into a room and really hash it out? Don't worry about the politics, just hash it out. And I was like, I don't think you really want me to do that. You see me as a professional, I'm not really like this. I'll cuss him out. And so he's like, no, I think it's a great idea. I was like, all right, cool. So we had a conversation, and he said his stuff. And I said, listen, and his whole thing was like, you want to bring in new ideas? I've been here for 20 years. You come in, you're like the shiny new person that wants to bring stuff in. It's like, yeah, that's the point of a team member, to come in with and fix stuff, but I digress. At the end of it, I said to him, I go, listen, you can either work with me or I'll take your job. It really is that simple. I know I said that. He didn't want to have any more meetings with me. But after 6 months, I took his job. So, yeah. It is what it is. The thing with confidence is you need to have knowledge to back it up, okay? You can't just say I'm awesome and then be like, oh, okay. So then this goes into a further story. So a year about later, I kind of wanted to start my own business. Well, I didn't really want to start my own business. I should stop there. So I kept walking into the same meetings. You know, you go to the same meetings, nothing changes, right? You got your targets, all this stuff. Nothing was changing. And so I was tasked to save money for my company. So I was like, cool. So I went to who was charging us too much, and I said, you need to cut your rates. You don't cut your rates, I'll bring somebody else in. He's like, that's not going to happen. So he went to my boss. My boss came to me and said, oh, well, we can't do that. And I was like, well, you told me to do this, so I'm going to do this. And I'm sure everybody here understands, especially being women, that there's been times in our jobs where we're told to task to do something, and because of somebody's feelings, not necessarily facts, it gets held up, right? So anyways, I said to my boss, because my boss came to me, and I said, don't do that again. If you do it again, I'm going to have an issue with it, because you're undermining me for what you asked me to do. So, long story short, he did it again. I called my husband. I was like, listen, man, I think I'm going to quit my job and start my own business. And my husband was like, okay, cool. Just come home. I'll make you some grilled cheese and mushroom soup. Yeah. When I'm stressed, I have grilled cheese and mushroom soup. So he knew the script. And I said, no, seriously, I think I'm gonna quit my job, right? My job's pretty good paying. He's like, do you think you can do it? I was like, of course I do. And he was like, okay. So then I packed up my stuff. I was like incognito. It was like the best highlight of my life, not gonna lie. I packed up my office, and then like I went to my boss, and then I went, peace out, Trout. I'm quitting, just like that. I know, my husband's like, you didn't do that. I did. And so I went and I started my own business. I went home, I was like, okay. And me, being me, I'm sure you can tell, some people here, they're like, wow, you're really like, it's okay. So me, being confident, I thought this was gonna be easy. I've saved millions, billions, hundreds of millions of dollars for companies. I can do it myself. Drained my savings, had about $200,000. And it's like, okay, I'll give myself 2 years. I did not get a client for 1.5 years. I know, right? Because my whole thing is I didn't want to go after people I knew. And I wanted to, I didn't know how to build a business. Just because I was good in transport and logistics, I had no idea how to run a business. But I went and pitched to people that were the same size as me, right? So small people, they wouldn't touch me. I finally got a quote I could do for this mid-sized company, and I needed this. Again, I don't fail very often, and I needed this. And to me, it was like I prepped. I had gone 2 times. It was with my business was originally an optimization for supply chain. Anyways, so I went in, was gonna knock it out of the park. The owner of the company was a guy, was like, well, tell me how to do it. I was like, you have to pay me for that. That's the whole point. I'm giving you high level here. And if you're a consultant, you have all seen this, okay? They want the information for free. Don't give it. So he ripped me a new, you know what, and I held it in. I was gonna bawl my eyes out, and I was like, you know what? My mom always said, don't cry in front of people, right? So I was like, hold it in. I was like, thank you very much. His team was like, I don't know what happened. I was like, me neither, dude, but I gotta head out. So I went to my car, drove a little bit, and I bawled. I bawled because I really wanted this opportunity, really, really wanted it. And so I was like, you know what? I called my sister, and I was like, oh, this isn't happening. And my sister was like, who is nothing like me, we're polar opposites, was like, girl, you are too cocky to let somebody knock you down. Cry your tears, dust yourself off, and get it on tomorrow, right? I was like, you suck. So it's the only time I asked her for advice, and that's what she told me. So I did, right? The next day, I actually had another quote with somebody else. I wasn't gonna go because I was feeling kind of crappy. I went, and when I went, did the whole spiel, and the guy goes, if you know somebody that is good with deliveries, we really need somebody because our provider just is not good. And I was like, I do know somebody. And he was like, yeah. He's like, could you have him here tomorrow? I was like, yes, I can. So left without a plan. But I knew I could do anything, right? That's where confidence comes from. I knew I could get stuff done. So called my sister, and I said, you need to be here tomorrow. Oh, God, I got to really hammer this out. So I said, you need to be here tomorrow to drive this truck. She's like, I can't drive a truck. I'm like, I can. I just need you in the driver's seat. Okay, so we did that, and they're like, wow, got there. They're like, you're so dedicated, you came for the first delivery. I was like, yeah, I did, right? We load up, she pulls out, we switch seats, and we're on our way. Yeah. They paid the invoice, and I was like, okay. And I realized in that moment, similar to what you were saying, is life happens for you. It happens for you. If you look back on your life and everything that you do, you will see the challenges that you faced actually turn into something great. I've got a minute left. Because of that, I went, okay, I'm gonna stop going after small guys like me because that's not gonna do anything, right? So I'm gonna start going after these heavy hitters. And I went after them. And I actually did something, I'm gonna write a book about it. It's pretty incredible what I did. But what I did was I finally got to somebody that was in a massive company. And when I got to him, he goes, you're not one of our providers, are you? I said, no, but if you give me a route, I will knock it out of the park. If I suck, don't pay me. And he goes, well, do you have your licenses? I go, yes, I did. Because again, being confident is about knowledge. You need to be prepared for the opportunities before they arise. I had every certificate known to man. Seriously, everything. Some of the certificates and licenses I didn't even use, but I had them. So he's like, all right, where do you want your route? I was like, anywhere in Canada. he's like, okay, just where are you? Like, tell me. And I'm like, Ontario. And so, got my first route. Guess who my driver was? My sister. Yeah, got my first route, and we killed it. That contract turned into a $1.2 million contract. After that, I went to another big guy, and I said, hey, I got him. Can you use me? Long story short, we knocked it out of the park. I was one of the only women of an asset-based transportation company, sole owner. And yeah, I will say one more thing. I got 30 seconds. Along the way in my career, even though I had built something awesome, is I was asked many times, so your brother is the owner of the company? Your dad owns it? I literally said to one guy, I said, no, I own it. One day, it didn't exist. I thought about it, and here we are. Stop asking me. He then put in a complaint to my company, which directly goes to me. Yeah. I then sent him an email back, and I said, you ask stupid questions, you get stupid prizes. And then I kicked him off our account. Yes, I started leadershiphub.ca because I want every woman in here, I don't care if you're insecure, if you are, find something about you that you're awesome about. And then say it out loud. Like my mother said, as long as there is you in this world, there's going to be people that love you and hate you. You need to love yourself, period. Have a great one.
That was so good. I love your confidence and the knowledge to back it up. Okay, next we have Susie Taka, who is the Executive Director of Spectrum, Waterloo Region's Rainbow Community Space. She has spent over a decade building community in Waterloo Region professionally and personally in the nonprofit and public sectors with a career path that spans communications, community organizing, arts and culture, and organizational leadership. Let's give a warm welcome to Susie.
Thank you. I don't agree with the order of this lineup. I just want to just set our expectations. I guess I too ride bicycles, so I'm also kind of a badass, you could say. Mine is orange. I can fit all 3 children on the back. I'm pretty proud of that. So, but I'm not dirt biking, unfortunately. My name is Susie Taka, and for just over a year now, I've been the executive director of Spectrum. We are a local nonprofit that does support, services, community building, advocacy, education around the 2S LGBTQIA community. Sometimes I say my job is finally to be professionally gay, which was a career goal I didn't know existed out there. Spectrum itself has existed for about 15 years. As a nonprofit, it's only had full-time staff for 5 years. One previous executive director before me, and then I took over the role last fall, and it's been a journey, I would say. In addition to my professional work, I also have 3 small children. I have a 6-year-old, and then a 3-year-old, and then another 3-year-old, twins, which is and 2 is the wrong amount of 3-year-olds to have, if you were wondering. So while my daily life at work is nonprofit, I do kind of navigate and negotiate mergers and acquisitions all morning long in terms of feelings and stuffies and snacks before I get to work. So for my career path, I think in my life I've been a bit of a late bloomer, and I think I've been a career late bloomer too. I moved to Waterloo the same reason a lot of people do, which was for school, and I went to UW. Then I left UW, then I went back again, and then I changed my degree again, and I finally found a little niche in communications there where I was able to also study things like social justice and anti-racism and gender-based issues, and started to figure out my voice and who I was. And at about 27, I also realized oh, I'm also queer, which was a surprise for me, for my boyfriend at the time. But that's sort of another speech to give, I guess. So after I left school, I knew I wanted to do good work. I didn't know what that meant, but I felt like, oh, I want to spend my whole day doing good things. And it sounds very noble, but don't get me wrong, like it feels like a curse at times because I would kind of rather go and have a job, and the job is fulfilling, but I don't need it personally, but there's something sort of either fixed or broken within me, I'm not sure, that makes me feel this urge to do work that feels good for the community. I grew up with parents who ran a pizza shop, so when I grew up, work was work. Work was stability, it was difficult, it was hard, it was sacrifice. My dad would work 80 hours a week. My parents made me never want to run a business in my life based on our own experiences. And so I craved good work and I craved stability at the same time. So I did what a lot of nonprofit people do. I went from contract to nonprofit, trying to find my way. And then eventually I left nonprofits about 6 years ago, the same reason pretty much everyone does, which is I was burnt out, overworked, and underpaid. And at that point I switched to the public sector and I was like, okay, well this is it. Like I can do good here and also have stability and benefits, and I was pregnant with my first child and I really wanted a grounded place. So for the next 6 years, I worked in the public sector, and I tried so hard to fit in. I really wanted to, you know. I would put on a blazer. I called it Blazer Mom. That was the character I felt I played. And I would go to the cubicle, and I'd go to the meetings, and I'd kind of pretend I felt like that we were the same. I was like, yeah, you know, I also golf. Sure, we could think about that, you know. And because of who I am, I don't read often as queer. I don't read as gay, so I kind of looked like every other exhausted suburban mom who drove a minivan to the workplace, but I never really felt like I fit in, and there were a few reasons for that. So one was my queerness. It does make me different. I have a wife, I have a different experience with life, and I also have had this journey of internal discovery and of living in a world that just was not built for me. There's a term called compulsory heterosexuality. We talk a lot about like homophobia and those things, but what we don't talk about is what children are given from a very young age, which is one choice, or no choice really, which is you're heterosexual and that's it. And so compulsory heterosexuality kind of shapes your whole life, and then once you learn, oh, that's what this feeling has been, it takes a lot of work to untangle that, and it alters who you are. And then the other thing is I also have ADHD and I'm neurodivergent. And the thing with ADHD as a disability is that so much of the things that are challenging, the executive dysfunction, the way my brain just works differently, it's absolutely kind of my favorite thing about myself. I think it makes me weird, hopefully in a charming way at times, and quirky and all of those things, but it's also a real struggle, and it's very internal. There's a lot of shame surrounding those failings because we live in a culture that really favors not the emotional, not the relationship building, not the compassionate, but the deadlines and the getting things done very specifically, and that is value, and that those other skills don't have value. So I'm in the public service. I'm working my dream job for a few years, I think. I was at the Region of Waterloo, working in reconciliation, equity, and diversity, doing communications work. It's like you couldn't have written a job for me that I could imagine existed. And I felt horrible. I felt stifled. I did not feel good. I believed in the work I was doing, but I felt so disconnected from it, from people. I didn't feel very human anymore. And then a life-altering thing happened to me, which is that my mother died. And if you lose a parent, for me, losing a parent changed everything about who I am, and I can't articulate a single reason how or why. It just sort of did. And I realized how I felt and how my body felt and what that experience had been, and that while the stability was so great, and there's something called golden handcuffs about working in places like government where you get great benefits and a great salary and all of these things that make you want to stay. And so after a period of time, I took time off from work because I needed to kind of recover from this very traumatic death my mother had. And this role came up for executive director at Spectrum. And once again, I was like, oh, this exists. This is a real job. So the thing about Spectrum is we're actually one of the largest organizations doing what we do in the country. and saying that we only have 4 full-time staff and about 30 part-time and casual staff. There are not a lot of organizations doing the work that we do, despite the need being critical. And I think we all know in the political climate that we've been in, especially for people like, say, trans folks or racialized queer and trans folks, that the need is extremely high, and unfortunately, sometimes it feels like we are spiraling backwards rather than forwards. So I made the very big decision to take a job that wasn't just about doing the good work I felt I really wanted to do for some compulsion reason, but that was also about who I am, which is good and bad. I think what I found for me and my brain and how it works is that I found a role where every single day is different, and I need that. I need to not be in a cubicle on the 5th floor, kind of staring out the window, wondering what's going on down there, and I want to be embedded in the community and talking to people and building relationships and advocating. And I also found that we need systems, and systems are good, but most of our systems are not built for women, and they're not built for mothers or parents, and they're not built for people with disabilities, whether visible or invisible. And the advantage that I have at this moment is working somewhere where I get to kind of change what we're doing internally, which is exciting and daunting. Most of the folks who work for me are also neurodivergent. There's an interesting scientific crossover you could read about with queerness and neurodivergence. I won't go on that tangent, but we're trying to rebuild a work system that works. And the things I've learned in the last year are the more trust I give my employees, the better work they do. I started there and I was actually shocked because it was a full trust system. So I'd kind of gone from something very regimented because there was 3,000 employees and you had to be in this many days a week and you had to be on Teams at all time, you know, and like that anxiety of like, am I taking too long loading the dishwasher on my break, to a place where staff work when they work. And we have our tasks, and we get them done when we get them done. And we have policies around vacation time and sick time, but they're more guidelines than anything hard and fast. And the more trust I extend, the better I get back. Now, part of the benefit of this is that there is a deep belief we all who work at Spectrum have lived experience. And so that does matter, but I also think the system can be replicated. I think what I have an opportunity now is all the ways I've felt or truthfully been failed by big systems, by having the regiments, having the things favored that aren't part of me, but the things that should be also equally recognized in our organization. And yeah, so I think, I don't think I'm a late bloomer at this point. I think maybe I caught up a little bit in terms of where I am and where I'm at, but I do have this deep belief, and being someone who did community work for a long time, it was about changing the larger systems, and there are things we need to change with the larger systems, don't get me wrong. But what I've been able to see is that if we can show people what we can do and shift the model, maybe within these systems that already exist, we can do something differently. People are very tired, and we are burnt out, and mental health suffers, and there are so many issues, and I think work often exacerbates those things. People like me feel they are masking, they are performing, and workplaces don't understand when your kids are sick or, okay, I'm going off. But my goal and my hope is that we can all think of how we can just shift. Don't even start from the beginning, start from the ground up with your workplace and completely change how it's done and see what the results are, because I think you'd be pretty surprised by the outcome. Thank you.
Susie, thank you. Also, I think you'd be a really good boss. Okay, our next speaker is Grace Ibrahima. She is a local author. Grace was born and raised in Trinidad, West Indies. She's a former labor and delivery and mental health professional whose early life was marked by abuse, isolation, and abject poverty. However, Grace later transformed her life through a series of remarkable events. She didn't have the opportunity to complete her elementary education, but she was determined to close the wide educational gap and achieved grades 4 to 12 in English in 2023. And now she is the author of 3 books, which Grace told me are available for purchase at the back. We're so fortunate to have her here today to share her story. So welcome, Grace.
Well, well, well. I am not quite sure how to start. Just standing here in front of you, you wonderful, wise, intelligent women, experienced women, it makes me truly humble. So why am I here? Apart from saying good things about you, I'm going to say good things about myself as well. And I'm going to tell you about the good, the bad, the raw, and everything in between. I was talking to the manager this morning. I came early because this parking business, I want to get a parking spot. So I thought I'm going to beat all of you to it, and came early, and I got a parking spot. So I was talking about the manager, and she mentioned something about honesty. And I said to her, you know, last night, that's the last thing I thought about it when I was going to my bed. So I'm going to be honest, brutally honest with all of you. So as I said, my name is Grace Ibrahima. I was born and raised in Trinidad, West Indies. I am from what they call a dirt poor family, an abusive family, and a huge family at that. And to cap it all, a family which is very religious. Well, they thought they were religious, but later on in life, when I sussed things out, I beg to differ. So when I was growing up in those days, I started school, and when I was about 9 years old, in fact, I didn't even have breastbud properly. And they took me out of school. They didn't ask me, they didn't consult me. And I had to go and work in the sugarcane field from 9 years old up until 22 years old. And I want you to walk with me in whatever difficulties you have in life. It doesn't matter what it is. Imagine a young black woman, and illiterate, getting on a ship from Trinidad to go to England to study nursing. If that's not the height of insanity, tell me what. In those days, lack of education, sentences like, I am, he is, it is, we are, which a little tiny one will know about that. I didn't know about that. But my sister was in England studying nursing, and she said to me, Grace, why don't you come to England? I thought, yeah, I'm going to go to England. I had no idea where England was. I didn't have a map. Anyway, but I know England was a queen's country, and it's got to be good. So also when I was growing up, they said to me, I will be seen and not heard. And believe it or not, a lot of time when I was abused, physically and otherwise, they said, I talk too much, and I ask too many questions. So one day I thought, I don't know what I thought. I know what I thought, but I'm not going to tell you. So my father beat me unmercifully. And I thought, this is the day. And I looked at my father in his eye, and I said to him, you could beat me as much as you like, but I'm still going to talk, and I'm still going to ask questions. And I didn't look down on the ground. I didn't look over there. I looked my father straight into the eye. And I think my father was so shocked, because I'm from a whole army of siblings. 5 brothers, 7 sisters, and I was somewhere in the middle. And I had the biggest and the loudest mouth. So because of that, I was beaten. So anyway, I got on the ship. When I was leaving Trinidad, I was a young, naive 21-year-old. By the time I reached England, I was a broken, bashed up woman. I was raped on the ship. got pregnant, and walked with me here again. So I got up to England, strange place. No one there to support me, no money, no accommodation. And all I had was, I was living at the nurse's home. And the nurse authority, the hospital authority said to me, okay, Grace, you've got two choices. And to me, these two choices, they were like living between the devil and the deep sea. You could either keep the pregnancy and forfeit your education, or you can, they said, terminate the pregnancy and continue with your education. Both ways, I know, whichever decision I made, it was going to be painful. So I had an abortion. Some of you here might think, ooh, abortion. But at the time, that's the best choice I could have made, and it was my choice. I regretted it because if I had any better support, I would have made different decision. But all was not lost. I felt as though in my first book, Mercy, I wrote a detailed letter to this child. And that's why that book is called Mercy. And I told this child everything. I didn't cut short anything. What happened? And I asked this child's forgiveness. But I felt as though this child said, okay, Mom, what's done is done. What are you going to do about it? And to me, this child said to me, keep on talking, keep on asking questions, but most of all, share your story, especially to children. And the children part is not about the abortion. The children part is about being seen and not heard. So now I've given presentation to a lot of school, I think more than 400 children, not at the same time, okay? And I said to these children, I want you to ask me absolutely any question at all. No question is bad, and let me tell you. And it was at Ken Sealer Museum. By the time those little teeny bumpers finished with me, I felt as though they've put my poor bum on a barbecue. They went all the way. All the way. They even said to me, has anyone ever, and they were saying this with quite a lot of pride, okay? Mostly Caucasian children. Gracie, now we are friends, no, not Grace, Gracie. Gracie, I said, yeah. Has anyone ever called you the N-word? I said, you mean? I said, no, I don't want you to feel bad about it because a lot of adults will want to ask that question, but they were too scared to ask it. So, standing here, it's a long journey for me, especially without education. My first lot of education started when I was 22 years old, and my late husband, bless his heart, he was trying to educate me. And that didn't go too well because I thought he was too pompous in my mind because he knew so much, and I didn't know that much. It's called low self-esteem. But as the speaker just said, Leon just says, in 2023, I thought, I am going to start taking back all those things they've taken from me, my God-given talent, things which I supposed to have as a human being. So I thought, I'm going to go back to school from grade 3 to grade 12. And let me tell you, I was bloody proud of myself. But before that, there was a lot of shame in it. I thought at 77 years, I should finish that. So what I want to leave you with is this. Believe in yourself. Have faith in yourself. Reach out to others. Thank you.
Grace, thank you. You talk about being seen and not heard, but trust me, I think I can speak on behalf of everyone. We hear you, and we're here for you. Okay, last but not least, to close out this morning's event, we have Jolene McDonald, who is the founder and lead advocate of Accessibrand, Canada's first full-service, disability-led agency focused on digital accessibility. With over 25 years of experience in branding, marketing, and communications, Jolene and her team help organizations design, build, fix, test, and train for accessibility across their organizations. So please join me in welcoming Jolene to the stage.
It's a good thing I'm last, but I really don't like this order either. It's interesting, this is not part of my speech, but I normally talk about my company, not me, but I rode motorcycles too. 6 years old, but when I turned 16, my dad sold it on me. I also found out I had ADHD because my son was diagnosed, so it all kind of makes sense. And there's so many entrepreneurs or people with the same personalities that are neurodivergent, so yes to us. I do have to read some notes, but I'm so excited to be here today. Nervous, but super happy and see some familiar faces as well, so thank you. As said, my name's Jolene. I'm a daughter, a wife, a mom of 3, 14, 16, and 24. Don't ask about the gap, maybe. I'm a friend, I'm an entrepreneur, a graphic designer, a coach, an advocate, and I'm a long-term optimist. I feel like no matter how many times I've been kicked, I still seem to get back up. As women, I think we wear many, many, many hats. I imagine many of you see yourselves in that list that I just said today. And I know that we probably think that those aren't professions, but they are all professions. I am also someone who lives with chronic illness. If I took this away, you probably wouldn't know. All 3 of my children have some sort of medical needs. My husband has some stuff that's happened in the last year. But my youngest daughter, Joy, who is 14, she was born with a rare form of dwarfism. And there's a lot of other things that come with that. She's not just little. She has, we were in the hospital a few years ago for 2 months for back fusion. She had plates in her knee. She's going to have hip reconstruction. So it's been a lot. And I want to start by saying something super clear. This isn't the life that I had planned. But like many of us, we've had these life experiences that happened, and I had goals, and I reached a lot of my goals. I'm very proud to say that I've done many things that I said I wanted to do. I had a picture of how things were supposed to be. I ended up becoming a single mom. That wasn't part of the plan. I actually got pregnant, was working for a municipality as well, and felt very constricted, but got pregnant. Wasn't married, we were okay, but that wasn't part of my plan. It's the best thing that happened to me, though. And then I met my husband a few years after that, and everything's been great since. For a long time, by society's measures, things for me looked successful. I had the husband, I had the kids, I had the house, I had the dog, I had all those things. But before the work that I do now, I had built a business with a partner that's still around, but that was really a big part of my identity. It was, I think I owned it for about 15 and a half years, and it was like people knew me for that. My hair might have matched that, for those of you who can figure that out. But people knew who I was, they had assumptions about my future, and so did I. And then Joy was born. And Jonas was struggling with school, our son, and I was becoming sicker, but we didn't know why. And it was just one thing after another after another. So, and then when she got into school, I was, getting calls from school. As soon as the school called, I had serious PTSD all the time because I thought something was going to happen to her. And that became my everyday life, especially for me. Not that my husband doesn't help with that, but I had more flexibility because I was self-employed then too. And then in 2017, it's sort of the epitome of life. Everything sort of fell apart, but then rebuilt back up. I decided that I couldn't handle my life the way it was anymore. My father was sick. He was dying of cancer. I was not well myself. I was trying to manage stuff for him. I'm an only child. I was trying to manage my daughter, and I decided that it was time to make a decision. I didn't feel like I belonged in my business anymore. I left my business. I tried to work for someone else. Also didn't work. I'm self-employed for a reason. And I was diagnosed with something called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So also comes with neurodiversity and other things too. So it really came to like, you realize you have a choice. You either crash and fall apart, and that's a choice, or you can pivot. And I was crashing incredibly hard. Some people who know me well always think that I'm so strong and everything on the outside, but I felt like everything was falling apart. It was a rough time. I spent 2 years on my couch, barely able to work, just trying to get things together. My decisions of leaving my business and losing a friend and other people at the same time, it came with grief. Everything comes from grief. The work that I was doing no longer felt right because it wasn't accessible, it wasn't inclusive. So when you know better, you should do better. But people weren't choosing that. So basically, I decided to take a future that I could build that worked for me and my family, and I had to let go of the version of who I was and come to terms with that. It's like a death. When you are someone who you are for a long time and you let that go, you have to embrace who you're going to be. And I was scared, and I was upset, and I was angry, really, really angry, but I was really sick. Like I said, I spent about 2 years on the couch, and I was trying to freelance, and I had registered Accessibrand, but I couldn't really work. I couldn't sit at a desk. Finally, luckily, I was able to find medication and some therapy that has helped me do this. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. My knee is now not happy, so I have to use it all the time. But my husband was also off work for 6 years. He got hurt in a workplace accident, and we didn't have a lot of income. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna maybe get disability. Don't qualify for disability. Those of you, we had a discussion at our table, 2 people that are disabled can't get disability. That's sad. That's how bad our country is for people with disabilities. And it costs us more because we have to do more therapy and things like that. So I guess underneath it all was a lot of fear of being judged, fear of losing everything. We probably would have lost our house. We would have lost everything. We had 2 cars. We have all the things. But fear of being seen as someone who couldn't handle it anymore, I think was something that was really difficult for me because people are always like, oh, everything you do turns to gold. I'm like, oh, social media is terrible. You know, we don't report all the bad things. It's not true. But I also didn't want to be someone who looked like they gave up, especially for my kids. And I never give up. Just like you were saying, you know, you fall off the motorcycle, you get back up. That did happen to me a few times. Motorcycles, ATVs, maybe that's why I'm also rough on the knees, but something that I truly learned, that women are really good at carrying grief, but very quietly. And we're very good at carrying other people's grief and other people's expectations, even when those expectations are hurting us, and that we think we have to carry that. And I think eventually my body just made it clear that I could no longer keep doing what I was doing. It didn't feel right. I couldn't remember my meetings. My body felt like it was like just so tight and gonna shatter. The work was no longer meaningful. I mean, do you really want to work on something you don't believe in? Or if you know you're building a building and you don't put in wheelchair access, like, you don't do that. Why are we doing that with digital? But it's not something that everyone knows about. So because I knew about accessibility and disability and advocacy, but I wasn't practicing it, I decided to make something that fit. I still was exhausted, but I also needed to do something for work. I had to be available for my family. If the school called, especially in her younger years, I had to be there almost immediately. If she fell a certain way, she could become paralyzed. So I'm like, I just remember thinking, why is everything so hard? I'm so tired. Chronic fatigue is a big part of this too. But then another thought came to me, and I thought, maybe it's just hard because it's really not where I belong anymore. It's like the whole saying about square peg, round hole. Maybe you're just trying to find a new spot. Maybe the systems aren't broken. maybe they just aren't built for me. And that's the case with a lot of people, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't need to fit into those places. So we need to make something that we want to fit into and not have to fit into where they are. Because when you're sick, when you're a caregiver, and you're just simply surviving, you don't have time for an ego anymore. And it just doesn't last long. You don't get to pretend that you're fine. You don't get to push through forever. And something I say often, especially when people ask me for advice, and I spent the last year coaching entrepreneurs through Conestoga College part-time, is that we don't tell children when they failed, when they're learning to walk. We encourage them to get up and go again. And we don't say that when they're learning to speak. We encourage them always to keep going. So why do we talk to ourselves differently? Why do we think that staying in something that makes us miserable, if we leave, that's failing? It's not, it's learning. And learning is a constant evolution. We heard about you changing how you learn, and Gracie going back to school. Everything is learning. I don't believe in failure, and I tell my kids that too. We just have to keep encouraging ourselves and each other. But I think it's just so difficult sometimes when we talk to ourselves so differently, and the whole self-love and confidence it's not an easy thing for a lot of people. But when you can do it and you realize that you do it for you and not for other people, it's a whole different scenario. And when we want to change for happiness, we're not calling that failure. So why are we insisting on that? And grief taught me that letting go doesn't mean failing either. Starting over didn't mean failing. Learning again didn't mean failing. It means adapting, it means more learning, and it means choosing to what keeps you alive and present, and honestly, just happy. I'm certainly not making the same income, but I'm happier. I'm helping more people, there's opportunities for others, and I think that's the part that matters most to me, is I'm doing something that's meaningful, and my kids see that, and my friends see that. I feel like I was handed a lot of lemons. I think many of us that were speaking today, everyone has different experiences, but illness, grief, fear, financial stress, it didn't look like anything that I had planned, but instead of forcing myself into something that no longer fit, and I did try working for someone else, I asked myself a different question. I said, what can I do to make money, to help others, and to be present for my children? And I combined what I already loved, so design and marketing, and what my life had taught me, which was about accessibility and disability and advocacy, and how much I also like giving back. I think I could be a volunteer full-time, but I still need to get paid. And I created Accessibrand. That's really, it's something that works for me, it works for others. And I just stepped away from what no longer worked for me, it didn't really work for my family, and I started paying attention to what made me happy and what was helpful. And sometimes pain goes away a little bit too. A lot of physical stress comes through with mental stress. And I noticed how many systems and experiences excluded people like me and my children. And that curiosity and anger became my purpose. Instead of getting angry and being loud, I became loud but educated and getting other people to help as well. But honestly, I'm just happy. Things look different. Some days are good, some days are not so bad. But I just wish that so many people I see so many people, and some of my friends too, they're just so unhappy because they don't like their job or they're miserable in their marriage. I'm not telling you to go get divorced, but you just stay for so long because they feel like they have to. It's because this is the way. Your speech really resonated with me. Like, you just keep thinking, this is the dream, this is what I'm supposed to have. But a lot of it's because of fear of failure or change. And so this is what the last 14 years, especially since Joy's born, taught me, that choosing your health and your family is not quitting, that rest and pivoting can be a form of learning, and changing direction does not erase what you've built in the past, but everything you've learned still matters. Some things just become a different shape. So just remember today, I just hope we stop judging ourselves. I hope we can give ourselves grace in the seasons of grief. And I hope we can always leave the room to do better for each other, because so many women are not working together still, that we have to work together for ourselves and for our children's futures. And if you need one sentence today, just always remember, you're not failing, you are learning, and you are allowed to define what success looks like to you. So thank you.
Jolene, thank you. Really love your message at the end, too. I'm always judging myself, so I'm going to stop doing that. Okay, I'm told we're out of time, so we're going to wrap things up. Just want to thank all of the sponsors today. I'm not going to go through everyone again, but especially Heffner Lexus, Heffner Toyota, the title sponsor. So thanks for all the sponsors. And all of our speakers, thank you all for giving us your message, sharing your platform, and speaking to all of us today. And thank you all for attending today's event as well. Also, the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce has the International Women's Day Breakfast happening Friday, March 6th. There is a QR code on your table. You can scan that to register for that as well. One other thing. You're all sitting here at your tables. Hopefully you've had time to have conversation with one another. We want you all to take time to highlight the one main piece of advice that you learned today. So maybe talk amongst yourselves or get up, walk around, share with one another the biggest piece of advice that you've learned today. Also, drive safe. The roads are a complete disaster. And thanks everyone for being here. It's nice to meet you all and see you all here.